Hello to anyone who's watching this video. Today I'm going to talk about an active listening technique which involves making subtitles in your target language in order to improve your listening comprehension in that language. Before I really get started, I want to define the terms active and passive listening real quickly, although if you've been doing the language learning thing long enough, you've probably heard these terms before, but just in case you haven't. Passive listening is basically when you let the language you're learning just play in the background while you're doing other stuff. An example would be letting some foreign language radio play in your car while you're driving, or just having like your TV on in the living room while you're doing other stuff. And this is very good for just trying to get a rhythm and feel of a language, and it's also very convenient because we don't always have that much time to devote to just language learning. However, if you want to make more significant improvements in your listening comprehension, you're probably going to start doing active listening techniques. And as the name suggests, this is basically just putting all of your mind and all of your focus to understand some sort of audio. And if you've ever taken a language class in school, you've probably had to do like listening comprehension activities where you listen to something and then you have to answer questions about the dialogue you just heard and stuff like that. So that's active listening. I do want to talk a little more about active listening just in general, since that's what I'm going to be focusing on. Once you get into active listening techniques, you'll probably gain a lot of insight into just the way people talk or the way people communicate in real life, and which is something we might not pay all that much attention to just when we're going about our day. And in particular, one thing you'll realize when you start really digging into some foreign language audio is that no matter how carefully you're listening or how clear the audio is, people in real life don't really fully pronounce things. They just don't say things completely. And an example, for example, in English, you might have the sentence, if you want to say, "What do you want to do?" You're not going to be very proper about it and enunciate each sentence and say, "What do you want to do?" In real life, you're going to have someone say something like, "What do you want to do?" And for someone who's learning English, that's probably very overwhelming, and that means almost nothing to like someone who's not familiar with that random string of syllables. So once you get into active listening techniques, you're probably going to find that you have to use your knowledge of grammar and context to sort of fill in the blanks on what people are actually trying to say. So this leads to the specific technique which I'd like to talk about, which is making subtitles in your target language. So making subtitles is really just transcribing audio, which, if you don't know what that means, is just trying to write down exactly what you hear. So this is nothing new really, and you can pretty much do it with any sort of audio. But personally, I prefer to use movies or videos over pure audio like podcasts, although I have done podcast transcription as well. The reason why I like movies is because it better mimics kind of real conversations that you'd have face-to-face with people to watch movies. And you can use context and body language to help understand what's being said, which is easier on the learner. And in particular, I prefer movies over other video, like TV series or such, because if a movie exists in your foreign language, it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be an accompanying English subtitle for it. Whereas for TV series, although I've not tried to really find soap operas or foreign language TV series for the language which I'm learning, which is Spanish, I just imagine it'd be more difficult to find subtitles. So I'll explain in a few minutes why I think it's very important to be able to find an English subtitle for whatever movie you're trying to make subtitles for. So when I make subtitles, I go through kind of a few-step process in order to maximize the actual active listening portion of the activity. So the first step is to just, which is the most basic step, is to just listen to the line of dialogue in the movie and try to write it down. So you think that's really all there is to it. But I say I go through multiple steps because I don't want that to be the end of it, that you either got it or you don't. So you try to transcribe it directly, but if you can't, you go to the next step. The next step is to load the audio from that line of dialogue into Audacity, which is a free audio editing program. They're a very popular one as well. And you try to slow down the audio in this program and see if you can try again and try to get the line of dialogue. If you still can't get it after slowing down the audio, I go to step 3, which is to look up the equivalent line in the English subtitle which you've acquired by some means. And when you get the English subtitle, this allows you to completely understand the meaning behind what's being said. And when you understand the meaning, you might be able to connect the dots on some of the words or sounds that you may have acquired from the previous steps. And after you've done this, the last step is to check your final transcription against an official target language subtitle to see how close you got. Or if you don't have a target language subtitle to compare to, you can consult a native speaker on it. So that being said, now I'm actually gonna get on my desktop screen here, and I can show you what I actually do to make my subtitles. Okay, so here we are at my desktop screen, and I'm actually going to show you what I do to make the subtitles. So first things, I have 3 programs opened up here. So the first program I have is this free program called Subtitle Edit, which is a really awesome program that lets you to modify and create subtitles. So this is the first program I have open. The next one I have is Audacity, and so my movies, I've extracted the audio from my movie and then put it into Audacity. And there are a lot of different free programs you can find online to extract audio from video, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. And lastly, I have my movie open on VLC Media Player. I found this is the best media player if you want to be able to display subtitles pretty easily. It has a lot of features to do that, so I recommend VLC for that. So here's my movie, and although you cannot see it, I have English subtitles playing down here, which you'll see in a little bit. So like I said, step 1, I just want to try to transcribe the audio directly, so just listen to the line of dialogue and see what I can get out of it. First thing, I'll describe a little bit the interface I have set up here in Subtitle Edit. So up here in the upper left are the actual subtitles themselves, and you can see all the details. So here's like the number of the subtitle, the start and end times, the duration or length, and then the actual text itself. Over here I have the movie playing in this little video player, and you can play, pause, volume, kind of just the usual stuff. And then finally down here is an audio waveform of the movie, which is automatically generated by the program. And you can see kind of here, just to get an idea, that peaks generally correspond to dialogue, and it's pretty obvious where there's dialogue and where there isn't. Within this box, the gray boxes represent the subtitles, and it's pretty intuitive. So the length of the box this way is how long the subtitle lasts. The number and time information is all down here, and then the actual text information is all up here. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, and over here is just a bunch of options you can use to navigate the subtitles and modify them, all that stuff, but you won't need to use most of that. So what I did here, so I'm not really going in order like I should, but the first thing I did actually was to download, if you look over here, was to download French subtitles, but you can extend this step as basically just saying to download subtitles in a language you don't know. So that's what I did. I downloaded subtitles in a language I don't know, and so I'll have some subtitle that lines up with the dialogue and all that stuff as a subtitle should. And what I'll do is, let's see where I'm at here. So okay, like here's Spanish, here's French. So basically I'll just go line by line. So this is where I'm at right now, and here's a French subtitle. And I didn't hear that, but what I would do is basically I would take the French, do the best I can from what I heard, and try to fill it in with Spanish subtitles. So I'm not going to really go into this one in particular, but basically in theory I would just go through each one and fill the French in with the Spanish until I got the whole movie. So pretty straightforward in theory, but usually it's not that straightforward because my listening comprehension is not perfect, which is precisely why we're doing this in the first place. So to demonstrate the whole method for creating a single subtitle, I'm actually going to backtrack to an early example, which I'm actually cheating a little bit here because I've already figured this one out. Let's see here, it'll be the blank line. Oh, I guess it's not. At any rate, erase that. But basically, well actually let's not erase that because it took me a very long time to get this line. I want to make sure that I put it back later. But at any rate, this particular line here was a fairly good challenge. It was not easy to get, and I really had to use every single step to break down the meaning and the words behind what they were saying. So let's go here, go to subtitle, position, and pause. This is probably one of the most used buttons that I use because it's very easy. It's very useful for navigating the different subtitles. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just try to listen and type. So let's play it. Alright, so I know what he says now, but when I first listened to that, I understood maybe like 30-50% of it. I got a few words at the beginning at the end, but I didn't really get many of the sounds in between, so let's listen to it again. Okay, so beginning, vale, que sí, oops, gotta turn on my Spanish language keyboard here, que sí, que a ver cuando, dot 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 dot, because I didn't get any of the middle stuff. That's right. And then I also got terreno libre a los demás. So okay, so I got the first words pretty well, and I got the last words pretty well, but I got very little of the middle. So let's try to listen here. And like I said before, if you didn't get any words, don't worry about it. Just try to get sounds. And then maybe as you go along, you'll slowly start to connect the dots and realize what words those sounds are supposed to represent. So from the top, oops, don't want to modify it here. Oops, edit, redo, didn't realize I was going to erase that. But, que ver cuando. Okay, so when I went through this the first time, I think what I heard was, let's see here. Darn it. That's right, I heard echa las redes. What else? Una tierna. So. So yeah, this is pretty much what I got. So I got a lot of words at the beginning, a lot of words at the end, and a lot of sounds in the middle that aren't words. So, but I'm not discouraged. So now that I have this, I'm going to try to slow down the audio, which is step 2 in Audacity, and then hopefully I can parse out some of the words and meaning behind this whole middle section. So what I'll do is go into Audacity, and well, first off, let's just make sure I'm at the right time. So down here you can see this line was around 7:39, 7:42. And so I'm just going to go there in the audio. Okay, well I've already lined it up, but let's see here. Yep, there we go. So what I have to do is we'll make sure the button is stopped or else you can't select it. Select the section of audio that you care about. And I'm just going to show you the clicks to make it a little easier for you guys to see. But click copy, file, new. Click paste. And now very good. Also, I'm not sure if the audio is picking up too well because I'm doing this on my iPod, and so it might not pick up the sound from the computer, so I'm going to turn up the volume a little bit here just to be sure. So yeah, here's the original audio. Right now it's still not very useful to us because it's just the exact same thing we listened to. So what we need to do is slow it down. Now, I'm going to slow it down by clicking the effects and clicking change tempo. And the reason why I do change tempo rather than change speed is because when you change tempo, you can change the speed of the audio without changing the pitch. If you use the change speed function and slow down the audio, you may get sort of like a Darth Vader type deep voice. So you don't want that. So let's go to change tempo. And you can see here's the original length. And then here's the length that we're going to change it to. So percent change, you just type in here. If you do a positive number, you're going to get shortening of the audio, or in other words, you're going to speed it up. If you type in a negative number, just slow it down. So as you can see, you go from 4 seconds to 5.33 seconds. I usually do about 25-30%. That's kind of the rule of thumb for how much you can slow down audio without distorting it too much, because otherwise you'll get a lot of weird noise and stuff, and it might hurt rather than help you when you're trying to understand it. So 25% is good. I'll click OK, and you can already see it lengthened out. And again, we'll try to listen to it and see what we get. Okay, so when I went through this the first time, I realized this part here. So he says, oops, let's go back a little bit. Yeah, sometimes I try to cut too close to the audio I'm interested in, but you should really just start further back and give your ears some time to adjust. So this section here I really missed a lot of. So one mistake I made was I thought he said tierna for some reason when I first heard it, but then I realized he actually said tia. So no R, no N, or anything there. The second thing I missed was this. Let's go back again. So this part I missed completely, where he said no dejas. So he said y no dejas él. And I don't know how. I guess it was just the dialogue was too fast, and I just missed it altogether. I didn't hear this section at all. But so now I did. This part I have not shed too much light upon just yet. I'll try to listen to it one more time and see if I can. So. So not a whole lot. This is still more or less the way I see it. I didn't really get much out of it yet. But yeah, so that's pretty good. So I filled in some more blanks, I got some more words, and cleared up some sounds and such from slowing it down. But now I have probably 90% of the words, but I still have no meaning out of this. So this is intended for people learning Spanish, but I guess it can really apply to anybody. So just to be sure, I'm going to translate the English meaning behind the words I have so far, which he says, yeah, sure, let's see when te eres an ant and you don't leave the terrain free for the others. So that means absolutely nothing. So it doesn't matter how much I got out, how many words or how many syllables I have, I still don't have much meaning out of this. So that brings us to the last step, which is to go into the movie playing on VLC Media Player, and actually I'll shrink all this stuff here and just put these two side by side. So I have Subtitle Edit here, and have VLC Media Player here, side by side, so I can use for comparison. Oh, I probably should have explained earlier, context, as you probably know, context is very important for understanding stuff like this. And so the context here, which I'll explain now, is basically these two guys are playing tennis. So they're two best friends. The guy here is sort of like a ladies' man, and so he has a lot of girls. He sleeps with a lot of different women. And then his best friend here doesn't get any women at all. And so basically what they're talking about is he is just like complaining about his lack of love life, and he's insisting that this guy is actually handsome and there's nothing wrong with him. So that kind of informs the meaning behind what they're saying and the context of the conversation. So at any rate, enough talking. Let's listen to the dialogue with the English subtitle, which will show up down here. Alright, let's go back a little bit here. Alright, well, we've heard the audio enough times, but here's what matters, is the English subtitle right here. So he says, when some girl ties you down, the rest of us will get a chance. So he's referring to his friend, obviously, and saying that when he finally settles down with a girl, the rest of the girls will be available for all the other guys, including him. So one thing that became immediately obvious upon looking at that, darn, I can't see it. Okay, there we go. One thing that became very obvious immediately was the meaning of the last part of, well, more like here, the last part of the sentence. No dejas el terreno libre a los demás. So he says terrain free for the others, when he's saying terrain free, he's obviously referring to the other women available. So he's saying all the other women will be available. The terrain will be free for all the others. So that made sense. And from there I realized that he didn't say no dejas, he said nos dejas. So you leave us the terrain free for all the others. So that's the very unelegant English translation, direct English translation, but it gets the point across. So then from there, this part is pretty obvious. So he said, sure, let's see when, and so you're saying, let's see when a girl ties you down, the rest of us will get a chance. So that stuff's pretty obvious. The hard part is this middle section here. So actually I can get rid of these dots because I've pretty much filled most of that in. So how does this become this right here? So when I did this, I realized that, so he said ties you down, and then I saw that that was probably where this became not las redes, but las redes. And a red in Spanish is a net. So he said when the girl throws a net on you, so like catches you, and then the rest of the guys will get a chance. From there, I saw that it wasn't techa, which I originally heard as just some one nonsense word. It was te echa. So now, te echa means throws you. Well, okay, that's not the best way to put it. But, so basically it says when this person throws a net around you, the rest of us will get a chance. And another thing I'll add here is that tia is universally known in all Spanish. Tia means aunt, which doesn't make much sense in this context. But then what I realized is that since this movie takes place in Spain, they were using the word tia to mean girl or chick. So this is a very endemic saying. This is like you only hear it in Spain. In Spain, a lot of times they'll say tío to mean a guy and a tia to mean a girl, whereas in the rest of the Spanish-speaking world, tío and tia are uncle and aunt. But yeah, so this informed that that's what she was actually saying. It didn't immediately come to mind because I don't necessarily learn Spanish just from Spain, and so it took me a little bit to get that that's what they were meaning. So let's listen to it one more time, just now that I've kind of have some anchoring on the rest of these words. Okay, so one more thing here. I missed the A in the middle. So yes, vale que sí, que a ver cuando te echa las redes una tía y nos dejas el terreno libre a los demás. One more time.
Tienen un verso gordas y acaban volviéndose locas. Vale, que sí, que a ver cuando te echa las redes una tía y nos dejas el terreno libre a los demás. Sí.
Alright, so very cool. Last thing I want to do here, so those are all the 3 steps. So first, just try it without any modification, then slow down in Audacity, and then use the English subtitle to get the meaning out of the sentence before making your last attempt. So those are all the basic steps. I was quite successful with this line, but if you're less successful, you want to confirm either with an official Spanish language subtitle, in my case, or to consult a native speaker on how close you got. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways to get in touch with native speakers. You can find online, Skype, or any sort of that stuff, or person to person, which I will not go into detail here. But yeah, so as you can see, this is obviously not a quick process. So I did it a little quicker when I was doing it on my own, but even then, it took a long time just to get one line of dialogue from an entire movie. And so I did, but even though it's kind of a quick process, and for a lot of people, it's a very tedious process, I like the fact that I didn't just like either know the line or not. Or what I'm saying is, I didn't either understand it or not understand it. So first I would try just to understand the native language, but then I would introduce more and more support and clues and hints until I could finally get it. So I find that made the process overall much less frustrating to improve my listening comprehension. So yeah, I know I left out a lot of details as to like where I got my movies, where I got my subtitles, how to use all these programs. I didn't really give a lot of detail. But if anyone actually ends up watching this video, I'll be happy to post more.